Okay. Well, welcome everybody to today's event. Basically, all things startup marketing. Really excited to be holding it today. This is the third of our series for 2021 so far. We started off with how to start a business, and then we did a hackathon on ideating and trying to come up with your business idea. And now we're looking today at all things marketing. So everything from trying to acquire customers to developing a brand to reporting, growing sustainably, all of that fun stuff. For those of you who don't know who the City Entrepreneur Network is, we are a group closely affiliated with CAS Business School, part of City University of London. And we're just like a diverse group of people who are in the entrepreneurship space. Could be current students, recent grads, faculty, and just people in the industry. And we organise these events during term time. Tends to be every month or so, and we just want to be able to share as much knowledge and help as many people start their businesses or get the most out of that way of life as they can. I'm Tori Hanson. I'm on the committee for the network. We've also got Charles here, who's going to be asking questions with me as well. We've got Ono in the background. He's going to be in charge of the competition. So for people who are here till the end, he's the guy you need to look favourably to. And then we've got Claudia as well, who's our president, keeping us all in line and making sure we don't step out. So that's us. That's who City Entrepreneurship Network is. And as I mentioned, we're going to be running the competition in a bit as well. So before we introduce our fantastic panelists, just so you know what's going to be happening, we're going to have about 35 minutes of Q&A directly with them, and then we're going to open up the floor to audience questions. If it's anything like the last session that we had, we just completely ran out of time. So apologies in advance if we don't get through all of your questions, but what I would say is just put them in the chat as soon as you've thought of them. And if you see any that you think look particularly pertinent and of interest to you, then just like +1 somebody else's questions so that we know what are the most popular topics. So with that, I'm going to start with brief introduction. So we've got Louisa, Maddie and Ellen here, and rather than me trying to do their background, the credibility and service they deserve, I'm going to actually just hand it straight over to them to give a quick 60-second overview of what brings them here, why they're interested in marketing, their experience, their background, and then we'll dive into the questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Louisa. Do you want to go first?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to meet you all. So my name is Luisa. I'm originally German. I studied in London, and then I actually studied business management, but with a focus in marketing. And my first experience was actually opening a cafe in Shanghai, which I like a kind of healthy Australian-inspired cafe, which resulted from my brand book that I actually developed during university. And then because of personal reasons, we moved back and now I'm actually back based in London. And I wanted to have something that I like, a brand that has more reach than like a physical cafe, but like a product that has a longer shelf life, reaches more people. So I just recently, actually in December, we went live with a brand called Matcha Union, which is like the main product is like the name say matcha, but we also have other products like matcha chocolate and also CBD. So kind of like energize in the morning with the matcha, and you can also use CBD to unwind in the evening. So it's basically kind of development into like a health and wellness brand rather than just like a tea brand. And so that's why, I mean, now obviously for us, because we are just launched and live, it was interesting to join this conversation because I myself realize how important marketing obviously is for a new brand, especially if it's online. And also it will be interesting to discuss my experience like with the offline marketing, like when you have a physical store, when people come into your shop and you speak to them directly, opposed to now like when people visit my website. So I'm happy to talk about this with you guys.
Well, thanks, Louisa. I think, offline tends to get forgotten, especially at the moment. So I think that's going to be really interesting. Ellen, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure meeting you. I'm Ellen, and I'm as well originally from Germany. I used to start my marketing career working for global players such as Unilever, Montblanc, and Chanel on the corporate side. And then I decided as well to do a master degree in international marketing between Shanghai, San Francisco, and Boston. And yeah, after I graduated, I wanted to start my own business as well. So I started to develop the American market for my business partner who had an agency in Jamaica. So I was working between Jamaica with a team of 15 people that I was leading while actually starting to grow the agency over in the US. This I did for 2.5 years. And as you all know, Corona started. So I thought of going back to Germany for literally 2 weeks. Now I'm here since a year, still waiting to fly back. And this was basically the tipping point where I started my own marketing agency. I'm working in marketing and branding with a lot of brands as well from the CPG industry. And basically work between the US and here, hoping to be back in the US soon, depending on how the pandemic goes. And yeah, I really love working with brands, especially with startups, crafting the story around the brands and getting the connection to the target audience that they are trying to reach and really, position them strongly in the market. I'm very excited for all your questions and can't wait to start this panel discussion.
Jamaica sounds like fun.
Yep. I was able to fly there sometimes, so it was fun, but it was more in the office than on the beach. So the idea is
you've got to do the job.
Better. Yeah.
And then last but not least, Maddie.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. Really excited to be here today. I am zooming in from Chicago. So it's the middle of the day here, even though I'm in this phone booth with really weird, like club mood lighting. I don't have any control over fixing that. So just bear with me. I studied English literature, psychology, and fine arts in college and have been working in marketing since. So I started my career working for Coca-Cola. I was particularly focused on paid media strategy for their venture and emerging brands portfolio. So at that time, a couple of really exciting brands coming out of that portfolio were Smart Water and Vitamin Water. So obviously like a really awesome incubator. From there, I moved over to Fox Sports, which is a subsidiary of News Corp. They were launching their first cable sports platforms at the time. So again, was working in this really, big corporate environment, but with this sort of entrepreneurial or startup bent to it. And at that point, I kind of decided, I'm really interested in getting more immersed in the startup space. So completely left, big corporate world behind. Worked for venture-backed startups in retail. I worked for bootstrapped startups in media and new media in particular. And today I run kind of my own advisory firm for early stage startups. So typically I'm advising founders, many of whom don't have any experience in marketing, typically between like a seed round of funding, maybe as late as a Series A, depending on the situation. And sometimes I'm working with founders pre-launch. So obviously this was a really exciting topic for me to join you to talk about today.
Fantastic. Well, I think you and I are both in our little phone booth cubicles here. So thank you for being there. So I think with that, Charles, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, I can start maybe. So thank you at first for being here and elaborating more on your background and your entrepreneurial endeavor. So first we can start with I will kick off with some general questions. So obviously marketing is essential when launching your business. No one would know more about it each of you guys because you each launch your own businesses. But when should founders start thinking about implementing marketing and why at that particular point?
Marketing basically for me describes every touch point that you're going to have with your customer. So the second you are starting to think about the product that you are launching, you should start doing marketing, as this is basically the essence of your business. And I think the core value is that you really think customer centric and put the client or the potential customer, either it's a service that you are selling or a product, in the center of it all, and craft the story around it with the product in order to succeed in the market that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, I would agree with Ellen. I think there's no such thing as too soon to start thinking about marketing. Whether you're going out and fundraising in front of a lot of investors, going through the process of kind of putting together a brand voice and brand guidelines and mission, it's going to be tremendously helpful to you to help refine your message. And, if you're lucky enough to be hiring salespeople or hiring customer service people, down the road, being able to kind of hand them kind of that brand voice and brand mission is going to help you tremendously with onboarding. So I'd say the minute you start building your company is the right time.
Yeah, I agree too. 100% from the beginning, because you want to be consistent, and while you don't need to try to do it all, like there's so many types with marketing, it's good if you kind of like start with one and like kind of see what works for you as well, like whatever you feel most comfortable doing, and then keep on focus on that one specifically.
Do you believe like even prior to launching the business, like even to identify like your customer segments, is that like very, very important to already like start thinking about marketing in that area as well?
I think for example, in my case, like when I had a physical store, people generally, they walk past the street, and it was like my cafe was small. We had 20 seats. So I needed only a certain number, and there was an existing place before. So it was kind of clear that people would see me. So in that case, actually in Shanghai, I never did any like paid or anything marketing. But now with the online business, there's millions of websites, there's a lot of competitors and so on. So if you're considering the online, I think for online business is even more essential to really like see how you want to reach your customers. And that's why for sure you need to understand before launching how you reach them, because it's difficult to bring them actually on the website to convert them.
I mean, even if you think of the coffee that you were launching, right? Like marketing already starts, like the marketing and branding should go hand in hand. What logo are you using? What colors are you using for the logo? How is the menu structured? These are all elements that are touching on marketing aspects. It's not always just about being digital or being offline. It's really everything that touches your customers and that engages with your brand and represents you somehow to the target audience that is either coming to a physical store or that is meeting you online.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So further on that, like what are the most common mistakes that startups make, or even from your own experiences, like what were your like earlier mistakes that you made and how to solve or anticipate on these?
I think personally, I would say trying to do it all. Like, I think when you start the business, it's fine to like go only one way, start smaller, and kind of see, even like maybe just like start with a very small limited number of products, or like stock, let's say, and then just try to start first to your friends, and then go a little bit further and a little bit further, because otherwise you have a more investment. And it can also be like, for example, now I was reviewing digital marketing and everything. I mean, obviously, I think from a brand perspective, I think you should be very comfortable with your product. I wouldn't give like, if you launch, I think that it's not like, I mean, you don't need all these like crazy details and pack, like when you present it to the customers, or you can add these kind of thank you notes, for example, you can add them later, but you should be kind of at a point where you're confident. You can always improve, but just also keep focus on the road ahead, like not just try to give it all instead of just moving further. You can always add a little bit later, but the groundwork should basically, like the ground structure should be already solid, let's say.
Yeah, I would add to that, like perfect is the enemy of done. You see a lot of founders like spend a ton of time, or, all of their resources prototyping and then going into market and finding out, oh, this market segment that we thought was our customer actually isn't. While it's so scary to put yourself out there when you feel like your product is unfinished, you can actually learn a lot along the way. So I think, just being okay with, making mistakes and getting in front of people and not worrying about shipping a perfectly polished product to market is really a good mindset to get into.
Yeah, absolutely.
So true. And it's like, especially when you have this like thing with the perfectionism, sometimes people also, if you communicate and if you can ask people, you can use it for your friends, you can use your, like even your social media or like say followers, whatever, to ask what they think, and that gives you so much insights, because sometimes you may think this is the right way, but then if you ask a bigger audience, it will allow you to make like so much better choices. So always like do listen to others, but follow your own head, I think.
Yeah, one of common mistakes that I see, especially when working with startups, I think sometimes they try to serve them all. And especially when it comes to target audience, for example, let's take the CBD industry again. A lot of my clients are in the CBD industry and they would like to serve everyone, right? It can be for older people, it can be for people that do sports and have pain, it can be for younger generation that have anxieties. So who are you really, like, what is your message behind the product? You should think about it. What do you want to communicate? What are the values that you have? And then try to reflect that in your communication strategy, because it's way easier, especially digital, when you find a niche and try to attach to the niche in order to serve everyone, because then the message gets confusing. Nobody really knows what is the core value of the product. So maybe pick a niche and try to target that one and then learn on the go, basically.
So you start mentioning there about values, like, and I couldn't agree more. Obviously, having a really clear mission and values are essential. But when you're starting out, how do you like start defining what your actual mission and values should be? And like, I'm curious, like, how much should they or shouldn't they like overlap with your own personal values?
I personally think that they should align very much with your own values, because you are in the end the person of the brand, and especially if you have your own brand, you want to embody what you're selling or whatever you're doing, and it makes it much easier for you, not necessarily, well, for you and also for people you want to sell it to bring across this message. And in that way, I think it should be definitely aligned with you. Maybe you don't need to write it down, you don't need to necessarily have it shared on your website, but I think eventually, obviously with more people joining your team and stuff like this, the culture changes. But I think you are fundamentally what grew it in the first place, so your values shouldn't really change too much, I think, in the process. So yeah,
I think it's a very interesting question, because it always varies as well with the product or the market you are trying to reach. I think if I can speak for all of us, we choose something that is somehow aligned as well with how we live, or the target audience. Maybe in the coffee you would go by yourself because you're passionate about it. But sometimes you choose markets for potential reach, or you did a research and think, oh, this is something that would scale very well, but is not per se something that you can identify yourself with. And then it's very important to see what are the core values in there and how can you add value to your customer? Like, what is the tipping point? Why would they buy your product, and why would they like to identify with your brand instead of another brand? As this is normally something how you as a personal person develop your personality and how you differentiate from others. So you need to see, I think it's a mixture of what are your core values. For example, you want to be sustainable. This is something that I stand for. This is very important for my brand. But on the other hand, what are the values that I want to transmit that are important for my clients, that are basically bringing the money in at the end?
Yeah, and I think it's like really tactically to add on to that, when you're writing your company's values, I think the question that's important to ask yourself is not what am I creating or what am I producing, but why am I doing it? And sometimes that's going to be really tightly correlated with your own personal values, and you're going to be an embodiment of that brand. And other times it's not, and that's okay. But I think the more you can get into the why you're doing this, the more easily your end customer is going to understand and be able to kind of like resonate with your brand.
Yeah.
Even further to that, so when you have like everything in place, you know where, like, what you're standing for. Like, while you are creating like your first campaign or like marketing campaign, are there like insights or like a walkthrough process of different steps that you find like very important that you should take?
Yeah, someone wants to take it, or should I start and then we continue adding up the list? Okay, so basically when you are starting your first campaign, you should always focus like, what is the objective that is driving my campaign, right? Do you want to have brand awareness? Do you want to have lead generation? What is the purpose? Why are you doing or launching this advertisement campaign? After you decided on this, you should define the medium. Is it, you want to do a Facebook ad? Like, where is your target audience actually presented? After you decided on the platform that you are using, you're defining your target audience, be as specific as possible. Maybe you crafted out some personas that you were testing or some different target segments that you were testing. And then you create your ad format, which is either video, this could be an image, this could be a carousel ad, whatever you choose to try. And then you set everything up, and then it comes to the A/B testing, which means you have basically one target audience, and then you have twice the same ad, but something varies. It's either the image or a little bit of the wording is changing. Then you test which one is better performing, the one that is least better performing, you exchange, and then you go down in the process and always optimize the target audience that are trying to reach. And what is most important, the objective that you tie to your strategy, always put a key performance indicator on it. Like, how can you measure that whatever you did was successful, and track this along the way. So always keep track on the numbers and have your objective in mind.
That was extremely thorough, so I don't know if I can add much to it. But one thing I would add is, the place that I start, regardless of what kind of campaign I think I'm running, whether I'm going to be developing a video or a Facebook advertising campaign, I'll typically start with doing search research. So what can I learn about what my customer's thinking about from the trends they're already searching online? So I like to use something like an SEM rush tool, kind of use that as just like a starting point to say, this is what I think I know about my customer based on their behavior. How can I learn more about or validate or invalidate that belief through this campaign I'm setting up?
Actually, speaking of that, with this kind of understanding what the customer is looking for and everything, I just recently actually watched a documentary about like ads and so on, and they recommended one thing which I found very interesting, to go into reviews, positive and negative, of like, let's say the same product. Like if you have reviews, go in your reviews, but if you have like a new brand, you don't have any reviews yet, go to your competitors' reviews, you check out what customers saying in the positive reviews and note down things that reoccur, and also the language that they use. So you can kind of like include this language, include these selling points. You may want to include this wording in your ad. And also then you can go to the very bad reviews, and you see maybe there's also some kind of like I don't know, repetition, and then you can, for example, shipping time or whatever it is, or packaging feel, whatever, you can avoid that. So this is how you understand kind of what people who are maybe interested in your product are actually respond to,
Yeah, it makes total sense, and actually it's very valuable, because at the end you need to like test your product towards your customers and tune it back and try to pivot it in a way, or improve it even. Further on that, so obviously we are like living in an age of where like digital branding, digital marketing is becoming like the norm. How could you like still like keep balancing your return on investment, like in terms of time and money, to maximize like the benefit from like the big online platforms that you are using to market everything through?
Yeah. I would say that, or how I would approach it is that I would look at the customer's journey, which is basically the steps that your potential customer is going through until he or she purchases, and until he or she refers your product in the best way. And along this customer journey, we are still having, again, these objectives that you are trying to focus on, and tie it to strategies. And then I would split it into paid, owned, and earned media, which is basically paid as advertising campaigns that you're running. Owned is everything that you create for blog posts, social media content that is for free. And earned is reviews that are made about your brand, for example. So I would always have a marketing mix that is very balanced, that you don't focus just on spending, but have the strategy that you're formulating broadly spread between these three channels in terms that you reduce costs and be as efficient as possible.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Because also like going in with a bazooka in terms of like budget spending, I don't think like that's always like the best plan probably.
Yeah, I think to add there, the way I like to think about it is like, you know, at the end of the day, every one of these channels, whether it's a paid, owned, or earned, is driving up to my customer acquisition cost goal. But you can't just look at it, every channel as like a zero-sum game of, you know, how much can I get the customer acquisition cost down? I actually like to look at every channel and say, okay, is this one where it's really affordable for me to get an impression or a view or maybe a click? Or is this one where I actually get a much higher conversion rate to my product on the site if they're visiting from this channel? And that'll actually help tell you a lot about what you should be using each channel for. And to Ellen's point, like really create a balanced mix of like what types of messages you're using for each and why, because it's not going to be the same for each channel. And you're not going to know that until you start, right? That's why you don't want to go in with the bazooka.
Very good point that Maddie made, because I think especially when your one objective maybe you want to have brand awareness, right? You don't see the outcome in sales right away. It's just you want to raise awareness. You want people to talk about you. It's a process. So everything takes time. It's like not a sprint, like it's a marathon. Like you really need to add like consistency. You need to be on track. You need to be focused. You need to have your KPIs in place and see it on the like long way, not short term.
And so like maybe moving the sort of conversation forward from the acquisition piece, because it's really easy for everybody to just think about acquisition, but like actually retention is equally, if not more important, because obviously it costs much less to keep a customer than it does to acquire one. Any tips on customer retention and sort of moving people from like a one-time customer to a regular customer to a real brand advocate?
I think there's like email like that is now online, but it can be also offline, obviously, like kind of follow up with the customers in however possible way you can. Like you can send follow-up emails. You can also like, even for you personally, like then you can offer reviews, but then you can give them a little coupon so they are more inclined to try it again. Obviously, there are also most of the people who write a positive review then are anyways inclined, but that kind of gives the extra kind of intention for them. And also, like, I think like now with social media becoming so important, like kind of give them a chance to be part of the brand, like creation this community, sharing their, like, let's say if they make a post of whatever you're doing, then sharing it on your site, like they feel that they are part of it, because in the end, these kind of face to the company as well, which is so important, I feel like it makes people connect much more than like just like a perfect looking brand, but there's not really so much like personality in it inside, you know. Yeah,
you don't want to just feel like you're buying from a computer or a machine. You want to feel like you're investing your money in a cause that's important. I guess that goes back to brand as well.
Yeah, and authenticity, what Louisa said, is very important, that you just be yourself, because nobody can copy you, right? You are yourself, you are your brand. What are the people behind? You make mistakes, be open about it. Like you should not try to hide something, but either really build a relationship, because you can collect followers easily, but you want to create a fan base. You really want to convert them. And another nice method is that you look on industry standards, for example, what is the customer service standard, and see how you can exceed expectations that they have. So nowadays everything is digital, right? But how would you react if someone actually would send you a handwritten letter after 2 months and saying, thank you for being a loyal customer? Or another client of mine, everyone is in the CBD industry. He wants to be more competitive, and he puts his personal phone number on every box. Like, if you have a problem with the product, call me. This is something you normally don't expect, and this makes you very happy and adds so much value to the client that you are trying to serve.
I love that. It's just that like personalized touch. I can see making a really big difference. Thank you. So then, you know, we've acquired our customers, or we've kept our customers. Like, how do we know, like from a reporting perspective, like who's the most valuable and which KPIs to track? Because obviously without reporting, you could just be throwing a load of money out there and not having a clue really what's generating your customers. And I think this is, you know, it's something that's so important. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I can take that one. I think it really depends on what kind of commerce platform you're using. But when I'm thinking about retention, I'm really thinking about what is the lifetime value of this customer? How many products have they purchased from us? And, at what cost did that come to them? And what I will typically do is develop an entirely, unique strategy for the really high LTV customer. And to Ellen's point, it might mean a founder sending them a personalized email every month that doesn't go out to anyone else on the list. But I like to think of those as like, those are your word of mouth people. That's like even if it's a small group of people, your most important influencers and advocates. So think very carefully about what you can do, not to just meet their expectations, but really surprise them and treat them specially as well.
Like that surprise and delight. Are there any tools, or like obviously Google Analytics is fantastic for setting up reporting. I'm just curious, are there any other tools that you guys use to run your reports and to like automate things?
For me, for example, Sprout Social or Hootsuite are platforms where you can upload your content on social media, and you can do reportings, how the content is performing, how your website is performing. So these are very nice, especially when you're starting off. If you don't want to invest in tools like this, Instagram has its own analytics tool in the app that you can use right away. There are reporting systems that you can look at to track your performance and to see how your content is engaging. So I would always have a look on that, and Facebook has the same. So basically, every social media platform has it. If you want to spend a little money, it makes it way easier, as Sprout Social or Hootsuite combines all of them and compares all of them. But you can start off as well just using the inbox tool.
Those are great tips. Fantastic. And then looking to the future, there's always like a new platform, a new tool coming out. Just before we started today, we were talking about Clubhouse. I'm curious, what do you think the future is going to look like from a marketing perspective? Any interesting new platforms emerging that you're seeing, or frankly as well, any that are starting to fade?
Yeah. Go ahead, Louisa.
No, Madeleine, you have, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know if we can call it new exactly, but a big trend I've seen, and I've seen a lot of venture funding follow this, is you're starting to see the effectiveness of email marketing go down. I think if you're a human alive in this world, you probably have gotten 50 or 60 emails today. That puts a lot of downward pressure on open rates. So I'm seeing a lot of brands start to move to SMS or text message based marketing, which is a much less crowded space. And it's driving a lot higher ROI than a lot of my email programs are.
I know, yeah, it's true. I've seen emails, but maybe emails marketing. Yeah, I see also in ours, like the click rate, the open rate is not that high actually. But also out of personal experience, I would say that's true. You get so many, you kind of like just click. Like SMS, I think you're more receptive, but I don't know if they really convert that much. I don't know. I think in US it's a bit more ahead. I think Europeans it's kind of more personal. So it's kind of like. I think you feel a little bit like not invaded, but it's like from a personal point of view in that case for the SMS marketing. But I think Instagram as a platform now is so thorough that I think it will stay. And also the like Clubhouse, obviously it doesn't allow you to show the product and so on. It's kind of more like to if you're somebody just like selling yourself, like let's say as a, I don't know, influencer or so on, it's probably helpful. It's like a way to go. But if you are in a business where you have like, where you really product focus, let's say, I think it's kind of Instagram is obviously better for that. So yeah. And also if you go into other markets, then there's WeChat and all these other things. So I think maybe instead of like, if you're a global business, then rather than like trying to market in all like European channels, maybe it's more interesting for you to actually tap something different. So that like another network in another country that maybe, of course there's language barriers and so on, but there's always like, it might be interesting for you to look at. So.
Yeah, and I think it's always depending on the target audience that you are having. I think every channel has somehow like its expertise, if it's LinkedIn for B2B, or if you're looking at Instagram for millennials or the older generation for Facebook, really have a look where your target audience is. And trends evolve, like you can try to jump on every train, or you can try to be innovative yourself. Like if you see TikTok alone, there are like so many kids out there that are so creative. And I think this is really something that is coming more and more. And if you look at debates that are currently evolving around social media and data protection, how it has negative impact as well, I think we will see a lot of new social media innovations coming around that try to be more connective, in as like for now, where we separate each other more and more from each other. So I think this is something that is going to be exciting in the next upcoming years, how it's actually evolving. Social Dilemma is a nice documentary. I can highly recommend it in terms of this topic.
Yeah, even with like the upcoming trends, like now, like digital branding is even becoming like more and more like they don't talk anymore about like regular marketing. It's like digital branding and digital marketing, everything. Do you think this is like becoming due to COVID, like that this trend will like go back and more like in a personalized branding way, so that digitization will like back up in a way?
No, I don't believe so. I think on the one hand, every trend has a back trend, right? So everyone is going to digital, then everyone is saying, oh, I need a break and I need a detox from digital, and goes back to it. But I think the development of our society, you can't stop it. And everything is going more and more into digital. We have machine learning, we have AI. I think everything is going to be more intuitive, but I don't think we are going back to where we were. This is not possible, in my opinion, but I think it's more important to focus on how can we craft a social network in the society that we have, that we don't lose the values that we grew up with in our age range. I think for the younger generation, it's something totally different because they grew up in a different time. But if we can combine it, that the social network is as well human and connects us again, I think this is where the future should go.
I like that a lot. You just going back to your earlier comment too about trying to bring people together, rather than just having like silos. I think that's something that personally I think is so important. Like if you're just talking to the same group of people all the time, you're not
Okay, well, we're going to do
it.
Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
I think this is as well something that comes back to digital marketing, which is so important. If you really want to succeed, you can have a great strategy, but what brings you the advantage is that you put your heart and soul in that. Like, try to be human and try to build real connections. Like, it's social media, so try to be social, communicate with them, get their feedback, interact with them, engage with them, answer their questions. Authentic as you can. And I think this is the only advice that would bring you further than your competitors in marketing.
Yeah, perfect. So we're going to now do this quick fire round. We haven't done one before, so we'll see how it goes. basically, I'm going to ask a question. Each of you take it in turns to answer, but like try to keep your answers to like 15-20 seconds as much as you can. And we'll cover all sorts of different topics, and this is our way of trying to cram as much stuff in to our little session as we can. So the first question is for suggestions on how to help non-marketer founders start marketing. So just because we're going to do this really quickly, I'm going to say Maddie, Louisa, Ellen. So Maddie, do you want to kick things off?
Sure. I would say be really clear with yourself about what parts of marketing you can be good at. If it's writing, if it's pitching, if it's design or using a tool like Canva, focus on that and outsource the rest.
Louisa? Oh, you're muted.
I thought it was the other way because you weren't like that.
Oh,
Sorry. I would, yeah, I mean, I agree. Find your strengths. Go with what you feel most comfortable with rather than trying to do it all.
Yeah, I would say as well, this is true. And like always have your customer in mind and see how you can add value to them and just get in touch, like just get started and the rest will be figured out on the way.
Fab. And I think building on Maddie's point as well, the first session we had with Sharon Lee Tony, her agency was bought out by Fiverr. And so that's a great example of like where you can go and try and find people who maybe do have expertise that you don't, who can help. So fab. What's one thing, and maybe we'll go in reverse order this time. So Ellen, Louisa, Maddie, what's the one thing that founders should start doing today?
That's a very broad question. If you start your own business, I think it's just getting started for the first step. As we were talking about it, don't be too picky and don't try to make everything perfect. Like be willing and be okay with failure, because this is where you gain the most value from. So just give it a try and go.
Yeah, make a plan and be persistent.
I'm going to go a different direction. Delegate. This is going to be your baby, but if you can't outsource tasks and trust other people to help you along the way, even if they might not do it exactly the way you would, it's going to be really hard for you to scale.
Perfect. And then going in the other direction, what's one thing, and I can see Maddie just flipping your answer here, what's one thing that founders should stop doing?
I guess, yes, if I'm going to give the inverse of my answer, it's doing everything. I think it's actually more helpful to identify like explicitly what you're bad at than what you're good at, so that when you find yourself soaking up a lot of time and resources through things that are really hard for you, you can say, it's actually worth it for me to hire someone to do this. Even if I'm hiring someone on an hourly rate, like I bring so much to the table, I don't want to get bogged down in the places where I can't add value.
Yeah, I think worry too much or stress too much as well, because you can stress forever about it and like just lose your time stressing about it, but there's always a solution if you keep going.
Yeah, be able to give tasks away and don't be too overprotective with everything. Like let it flow at some point.
Yeah, you can't do everything. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs, isn't it? And especially if you want to go from being like a founder to a CEO, like you can't be the person doing everything. You've got to be the captain of the ship and try and empower your team. So cool. So with that, I think because we've started to get a load of questions in the comments, which is fab, we're going to transition over to audience questions. I think Charles is going to ask the first one. Are you good to take over, Charles?
Yeah, anyway, fine. So the first question that we had from the chat, that was already like a long time ago, was for those who don't have like any or don't have much experience in marketing, are there any like good boot camps that you guys recommend for them?
Yeah, I don't know if these are specific to the US market, but General Assembly has really good resources. LinkedIn has good resources. And even SEMrush, the tool I said that I use for search analysis, has a lot of really like data-rich content.
Sprout Social is very nice as well. Founders and entrepreneurs.com have amazing content about starting your business, how to market yourself. And spoiler, I'm launching an online class specifically to this topic in the next 2 months. So if you guys want to sign up, this is another option.
And I think also Facebook itself and also Shopify, like the platforms, they have a lot, like even there are many apps, like for example, for email marketing, and most of them have free courses. So if you just like put it into Google, there should be, even YouTube, there's some good ones on YouTube, just check whichever, like, and if it makes sense for the first 5 minutes, if it's not just like something that's your waste of time, but there's good stuff there too.
And then
great tools there.
Yeah, very good tools. And next from Thomas, we had like a question that is addressing to what we discussed earlier as well, that like in digital ads, it's not like a very fresh idea anymore. So people get like used to them and start using like ad blockers or just like unsubscribe. How would you keep like customers interested and manage to reach out to them? Are there like new solutions or recommendations how you keep them like involved?
I think maybe like rather than digital ads where you just advertise products, you can advertise benefits. So kind of like, or the story around something that you're selling. So the person is not like really just like, yeah, this is 30 euros or something, like 30 pounds or something like that, but something like something around it. So it's kind of related to brand awareness, I guess, but then the person remembers, oh, maybe like this benefit, sometimes I feel tired, maybe I should do that. Like a different approach, but then otherwise go other, like, yeah, I think that's actually, that's it.
Yeah, I would agree with this person. A lot of the paid channels are really tired. You know, we all see tons of social media ads. I would challenge them to think about whether they should be running ads that are like a click to buy model, or if they could think about kind of shifting to more of a lead acquisition model. So maybe their ads are helping them get someone's email address or helping them get someone's phone number, so they can actually start marketing directly to them. Over time, that's going to have tremendous value for your customer acquisition cost and just give you back a lot of control over your funnel.
Yeah, and I would maybe add working with micro influencers, not the huge people that have billions of followers, but really the ones that are specific to your niche that you're trying to target. As yeah, this is something where you can build trust and transparency if you do it the right way.
So basically, at the end, like keep your customers involved also by being authentic and just like serving them in the right way, in a way. Further, we have, are there any marketplaces out there that specialize in marketing services? So particularly if you are looking to outsource marketing functions?
Yeah, I think
Needle,
so.
no,
go ahead.
Needles is one where you can outsource basically campaigning. It is, I would say, especially when you start off or a beginner, they even help you with crafting your first campaign. I think it's a very nice tool that you can try out when you are just getting started.
And I would add both Upwork and Fiverr. I've worked with freelance marketers all over the world through those platforms. You can find really good, really affordably priced services for a wide variety of your needs.
Just building on that, like, are there any tips that you've got around how to get the best from outsourced services? Because I think it's really easy to think, oh, we've just found somebody. You're like, hey, this is what I want you to do, go, and then expect them to completely understand what was going on in your head. Any tips to sort of try and maximize the effectiveness?
I think be clear and define what you want, and always, like, for example, Fiverr, like the I recently used, and you always don't sign up for something like a one-off delivery, but like with revisions. So at least you have like the chance to change things and like kind of like build. And also I think chat before you pay for a job, like get to know the person that you're hiring and like be sure that they can kind of like identify with what you want to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's with Louisa, it's not just, you know, whether they have the skills to do the job, but also the communication style. When they're outsourced, I think that becomes even more important than when you're working with someone in-house. So do you communicate clearly and easily with them?
Yeah, and I would also, just from wearing my former corporate hat as well, I think it's really easy to forget, a bit like Ellen was saying earlier, about the importance of objectives. And actually, if you want a creative solution, it's less about controlling the actual, I guess, process that that person's going to use or the mechanism. It's like, is what they deliver achieving your goal? And if it is, then actually you're probably going to get far more by sort of giving them a bit more free rein than you would have done otherwise.
Yeah, I think a good rule of thumb to add to that, Tori, is like, if you don't tell them what your business level strategy or objectives are, you can't really expect them to deliver the right product. So briefing becomes really important.
Yeah, they're absolutely not mind readers. Okay, and then we have a question here from Ghana, I think it is. Any tips about how to grow brand awareness on Instagram, but presumably it's any type of community platform, to really try and increase your follower base?
I think
basically building your organic communities.
I think consistency in what your content you give is important, and kind of make it also like, if it's not now specifically Instagram, visually appealing. I think if you don't have like any like backup from some big influencers, you know, sometimes there's random pages that immediately have like a lot of following and so on. If you don't come from that background or something, it's hard to reach the first 1,000, but then it kind of like keeps rolling faster, and then you can like kind of partner up with other brands, do like a giveaway or something, which kind of like you can also new brands, for example. And then the bigger the grow, the more people you can kind of like connect, and then it goes faster and faster. Like I've seen it for us, it was really hard to reach 100, but now we're almost 1,000, and now it's going much faster. Like, but it's, you need to find a balance, but also like keep it interesting. Like why should they follow you? What do you communicate? And then you can go. But I wouldn't like, you know, some people are like into like they buy fake followers just for people to see, but then it doesn't make any sense because you don't convert. And it may be looking like in the first glance, but I think by now everybody knows that this is not working. So always like be also authentic there, because in the end, like a smaller community which actually converts, it's much more valuable to you than like 20,000 followers who don't convert. And you will see it in your insights anyways, and you will have like your insight basically crazy forever if you do that. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and be very consistent in the message that you're trying to communicate. It starts with the bio that you are having, like be very short and specific about what you want to communicate. The look and feel of the page is very important, and the topics that you're picking on. Be very consistent with what you publish, and try to communicate how you can add value. And for organic reach, it's an old game, but it is still the game. Use hashtags the right way. I would highly recommend Flick for that. It's a website that helps you to build a hashtag strategy. And this is a game changer when it comes to building an organic audience.
And also like influencers help, I think, but also I think micro influencers do help maybe sometimes even more. Like we've gifted a lot of people now, and it's very interesting how some people just like have really a big following and they immediately give like a lot of clicks even to the website and stuff like that, opposed to some people who have like 1.5 million and they do nothing. It's like, because you always have to think about what the person you gift, what do they represent? Like, do they actually align? Because we did a lot of fashion, but in the end, we are more like a wellness health brand. So they didn't convert so well. So now we kind of shifted. We're building now like a little community of ambassadors. We have like this MU family. And this also obviously allows them, like they have their own discount codes, they get their monthly supply, and they have like these 5, let's say, together have this like really tight community that follow what they do, opposed to like somebody who is spread all over the world, which doesn't do anything to you. So trying to think like those baby steps with the right people rather than trying to reach like the world, but they're not really relevant to what you do.
Yeah, and I think just having a niche and knowing your target audience is going to really help you across your whole entrepreneurial journey as well. Like if you're talking to VCs, they're not going to want you to say, oh, every single person in the world is my customer base. They're going to want to know that you've developed a product that's specific for a certain person. And that's going to help you then be able to communicate a targeted message like Helen was saying. Okay, we've got somebody asking now about B2B marketing. Obviously, there are some similarities, but any suggestions that you could give to help them?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say like the typical difference between B2B and B2C is going to be how long the customer sales cycle is and probably the price of the object. So something I've seen work really well is having a really good long tail content strategy. So writing a lot of really specific blog content that like really only that one target buyer who is your audience would find helpful. And making sure that content is sequential, right? You want this person to come back probably 15, 16, 20, 25 times before they buy. So it's not just one piece of content, but it's an entire library for them.
Yeah, perfect. And always have a look, who are you trying to reach? Like, who is the decision maker in the company? And try to specifically go after this person. Like, you should know to whom you are talking to and target in this area.
Yeah, I would agree entirely. And I think you just have to do your research. Like, I think we've all probably been in situations where we've had a million different LinkedIn requests and it's somebody just trying to sell you something and they don't even know who they're talking to. You might already be connected to them and they're like just trying to cold pitch you. And I think that's, frankly, I think that's quite rude and sloppy, and you're never going to build a relationship with somebody like that. So if you do have these channels like LinkedIn, for example, just take your time and identify certain people, really craft a message that makes sense. Like if they've said somewhere that they really like a particular sports team, like maybe you could bring that in. But you don't also have to go straight into trying to sell. Like remember that we're all people first, and like try and make some sort of connection, and then start cultivating that relationship before you dive in. That's just a personal pet peeve.
Yeah, here we are back as well to adding value, right? If it's B2B or B2C, you have knowledge, like whatever you are selling, even in B2B, you have knowledge in a specific area that will probably help the person on the other side. So try first to give in order to receive at the end.
And I think it goes back to what you said earlier, Ellen, about really making sure you understand your buyer's persona. You know, what you put in front of them is going to be very different if the buyer is a chief technology officer versus a chief financial officer. And if you can really understand that and kind of communicate to that specific person in the way that you're framing things, it's going to make a tremendous difference.
Sorry, I was just doing a quick social media plug on the chat there. Fantastic. I think we've got time for one more question before we start wrapping. And this is like a personal one that I have because I come from a media background. And so I'm really curious to get your thoughts about PR and sort of honing your message for journalists and sort of cultivating relationships and really the importance, I guess, of generating that earned media. Any experience, insights that you'd like to share?
I think PR personally, like we did now for 2 months, we did PR and we got some nice like press and it's kind of, I don't know personally, like if we look at whether they converted, it's not like they gave so much conversion, but what they do give is that for some people that look at a brand and they see that it was published also in print media, even though some people like now say it's all digital or something, but it's really nice to actually see something in print these days again. And it kind of adds a little bit of, how to say, like validates your product a little bit. Maybe like people, maybe like if they, for example, read Vanity Fair or something like this, they are more inclined now that they see our gift set there to buy it because they feel like Vanity Fair is like a good quality newspaper. So then I should buy it, or like that it's trusted by Vanity Fair, I will do too. So it kind of works in the same like word of mouth and maybe in a kind of more personal way because you trust, like the same, like a friend says, some people follow like what this kind of like influencer or newspaper says. It's kind of this kind of personal relationship. So it's important, but I mean, if you don't necessarily have the budget right now to like pay for a PR, or because it is expensive, and also to even approach like people directly, like it's always, you can always find different ways. You can, for example, when I had the cafe, I just invited the editors to the cafe, I gave them a free meal, and this is how it worked there, and they wrote a nice review which gave us press. But now with the products in London, it's completely different. Like even if you give people that, you will not just get a review for that, or you will not get a feature. So there's much more personal relationships which you have to like nourish for a long time. So in that case, it's cheaper sometimes to find a good PR agency who actually already established these relationships for you, to find that one, pay like a 1 off or 2 months, so you have a little bit of press, and then you can use that. But in terms of conversion, like if you focus on social media first or something, like the press will follow anyway. So you can create a buzz in a different way too. It's a matter of budget, I think. And
yeah, and I would argue with press, like if you're thinking about it as a conversion channel, you're probably not using it the right way. Like a lot of what Louisa just said is all about just growing awareness. And then if you're thinking about, if you are working with an agency, or maybe you're pitching stories yourself, maybe you're really scrappy, remember, like for a writer, like what their actual role is. They need to go to their editor and say, like, here's something new for me to write about. Here's something different for me to write about. So it's not enough to just have a matcha. It's what's different about Louisa's matcha that no one else can write about. That's how you're going to find your good story, and that's how you're going to find good press.
I'm just going to sneak in one last question because it's relevant. This is a big ask, and it can mean so many things to so many people, but any recommendations on how to find a good PR agency, or I guess, expanding on that too, how do you know what to look for, whether an agency is good or not?
I think like most of, oh, sorry.
Go.
No, I mean, these days, I think more and more, even PR agency, they go have their Instagram account, they see who they work with, they share their achievements of what they have like created for the other brands they work with. And you go by that and you see what, like, for example, like mine is like work with other wellness brands. So that was a fit for me. And also she was recommended by someone to me. So that was like a double kind of like check mark. So you just have to do your research. Most of it is mostly just research, and then you find the right fit.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, we're going to draw the discussion to an end. This is one of those topics where you could just keep going. We could have just spent the entire session on like the importance of brand and creating brand values or acquisition, but we sort of tried to go down, I guess our own sort of conversion funnel approach there a little bit. So thank you. Before people drop off, I'm just going to hand it over to Ono, who's been in the background doing the competition.
Yeah, thank you, Tori. So yeah, we have run a little raffle here in the background, and I've just asked our randomizing machine here, other people know by Excel, to generate us a little winner. And congratulations to Katrina Makins. I hope I pronounced that right. You have just won a £25 voucher for Amazon. Yay! And if you could drop us your details, maybe to me, Tori, Claudia, or Charles, in a private message, then we can reach out to you after the call. Yeah, and then of course next time there will be a new chance for everyone else.
Well, congratulations, Katrina. And thank you so much to Louisa, Maddie and Ellen. If people want to get in touch with you after or follow you on social, what's the best way for everybody to track you down? Oh, I see email addresses popping into the chat here.
In the chat, yeah.
Put it there too.
Fantastic. And I would 100% recommend everybody to go look up WeMind, January 8, go buy some matcha from Matcha Union.
Or chocolate.
I'm very curious. Love it. And Ellen also put together a little toolkit as well with some different resources that she thought are really important. So we're going to be sending that around to everybody afterwards too, along with a few sort of summary notes of what was discussed. So I'm going to draw it to an end there. April the 15th, we're going to be having the next session. That one is going to be discussing all things accelerator, the importance of accelerators, do's and don'ts. We're just finalizing that one, but if anybody's got any recommendations or knows people in that space and wants to invite them along, please do and drop their names in the chat. And if you haven't previously signed up for our social media, I will put it in the chat here again. We've now got WhatsApp, YouTube, where we'll be posting this video again in the next couple of days, LinkedIn and Instagram, which Claudia has been doing a sterling job of. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you and good evening to Europe, good afternoon to the US, and thank you so much to Ono, Charles and Claudia. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Weekend soon.
Bye.
Bye.